Shir sponsor Lunish Vasam Yakshom Labas Yitzchok. We're holding in Babakama Daf Nuntes. We're starting in Amud Aleph. In the end of the line starts with the word Omar. It's I think about 10 lines from the top. Omar Abaye. Abaye says, Abaye says, Rabbi Yosef Glili, Rabbi Shmuel, Omru, Dover Echad. They said the same thing. What does it mean they said the same thing? So, as many times the Shas brings, we find Mandomri, they agree to the same concept. What's the concept over here? So we learned that Rabbi Yosef Glili says, Nidoin b'meshur shaboy. What is Nidoin b'meshur shaboy that we learned in the previous daf? It means when you have a part of the field that was consumed by an animal, and you want to know what's the value, you measure it based on the leftover. You look at what she didn't eat, you see how that will grow up and be, and based on that, you value what you lost. Right? As Rashi says in the previous Amud, so let's say she ate 5% of the field, 10% of the field. You look at the other 90%, see how much that will be valued, and then you know she ate 10% of that. So if in the time of harvest, 6 months later, the 90% is worth $900, you know that what she ate was $100. That's what it means with Shur Shaboy. So based on the rest, you assume what it is. That was a basic Lily. Rabbi Shmuel argues, right? What does Rabbi Shmuel say? Sorry, Rabbi Shmuel also agrees. Rabbi Shmuel in one way, the Tanya. This is what we saw early in the Masech. The beginning of this Masech said also Masechas Gittin. Meita Sadeo, Meita Kar Meshali, Meita Sadeo Shanizak, Meita Kar Shanizak, Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says when you have to pay Meitav, you value it based on the Nizak, based on the one who got damaged. Not on the damager, but on the one who is damaged. The one who is damaged, he is the one who will get hurt. He is the one who the one who's getting damaged. You based on his field. His best field is what you have to pay. Rabbi Kiva says no. It's first of all, as the Gemara told us in the beginning of this Masechta, is Rabbi Kiva says you don't mishai based on the nizak, but based on the mazik, meaning the one who damaged, you take his base field, and that's what he has to pay. Once again, just to remind ourselves, you always pay the same value, the same amount. She damaged $100, you pay $100. But the question is, which field do you give? Do you give a best field or not the best field? Rabbi Shmuel says you give the best field that Nizak has. If the Nizak has, his best field is, call it, in South Carolina, you give him a field worth like South Carolina. I don't have to give him Manhattan prime real estate. But Rabbi Kiva says you go based on the mazik, the one who damages. If the one who damages is a much higher quality real estate, that's what he has to pay. And Kavachayim Lagdish, you learn the Hagdish as well. But here the Gemara is telling us something we did not learn now in the beginning of the Masechta, and we did not learn in Maseches Gittin. And that is Rabbi Kiva sounds that he's coming to be mimayed something. Loi ba kasuv ela, the Torah explains over here. The Torah is not coming to require you to pay as much. What do you mean? Rabbi Kiva is the one who says that you pay the higher value. So what is loi ba kasuv? The Gemara now explains. Rabbi there explaining Rabbi Shmuel. What does it mean? Nidam Manizak. She ate a garden. I don't know what she ate. Did she eat something which is a low value, low quality, or high quality? You go and give the higher quality, meaning more value. Based on what we have now. So that can't be that. As the Gemara said earlier, my time I'm with I don't know what she ate. A good field or bad field? I'll pay the good field. Maybe she ate the bad field. That can't be. So what is the din? The native will come in. You go based on the metav of the future. That's what Rabbi Shmuel says like this. You look on the nizak. How do I know what the nizak damaged? So the more understands what Rabbi Shmuel is saying based on the nizak means, I'm looking at the full value. It wasn't grown yet. How do I know how much can be the full value? Based on Mishur Shavuot, based on the rest. That's why we're supposed to call the Nizak. You're paying the Nizak, but the future value of the Nizak, not the current value of the Nizak. That's what he learns. Now, the Rabbi Kiva says, no, I go based on the current value. That's what is explained in Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says that you don't do, it's not that you're doing based on the future. You're doing it based on what you ate right now. Just who made of carbo, which field does the mazik pay? The mazik pays his own best field. But you don't go based on the future value. So that's called, the machlekes is, do you do nidun b'mishuyar shaboy or not? Do you give the future value based on the rest or not? Okay. Says the Gemara. Omar man. Rabbi Shimon, so just to summarize, Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Kiva argue. On one hand, Rabbi Kiva is more machmir because he says you take the best field of the mazik, of the damager, not the one who damaged. If the damager has a better field, you give it a better field. But Rabbi Shimon is going to be machmir to say that you do base a future value based on what the field will be worth in the future and not based on current value. So we saw in the Brisa, in top of the Talmud, we ended the daf yesterday, he says, talking about he ate the vine, the grape shoots or the branches of the fig tree. In other words, it's the beginning of the blossoming of the fruits before it actually came out of the tree. So then you go and you do cheshbonos based on the 60, you value it based on the rest, etc. Hasamdor you look at it, how much it is in the future value. I mean, we learned in the Brisa that Rabbi Shua says, I look at the grapes that he ate, I say, okay, these grapes, right now, these grapes are not ripe, it's worth only $10. But when they will be ripe, they will be $100. You pay $100. Chaim say, no, we're talking about, we look at it right now. How much was the field worth before I ate? How much is the field worth right now? That's what I'm paying. The Gemara says, and you multiply by 60, as we learned in the previous daf. Now, Yehuda says, depends what you ate. If you ate full grapes, even unripe grapes, you pay the full value. But if you paid it before it started growing, so then you pay it based on the current, whatever the field lost in value. So the Gemara says, that's what he spoke about. The next sentence of Shimon ben Yehuda is what? He ate pogim. Pogim mean unripe fruit when they're just starting to bud out. Right? So I skipped one line, maybe for a line. Hasmadar. Smadar means when the flower of the fruit starts budding out. So lulavi fakfanim and churteinim is just when you have the branches and the fruits are not yet coming out. Smadar is the beginning of the budding of the fruit. And then when you get to pagi v'baiser is when the fruit is already came out, but it's not fully ripe. So the Rabbi Shimon Yehuda told me two sentences. If it's still branches, you go based on the current value. If it's already unripe fruit, so you go based on what the future full fruit will be. What happens if it just budded out, but it's not yet unripe? The middle stage, smother, what do you do then? So from the ratio mashal smother, you pay it as a full fruit. From the sefer mashal smother, you don't pay as a full fruit if it's just a flower. How do they translate, by the way, in art school, the smother? The word smother?
Budding grapes.
The budding grapes, that's it. Yep. So he says, so that's what he was asking. So if we ratio mashma the smother, we look at the full fruits. Look at the end. Who do only when it's unripe fruits? Hasmother, which is only budding, you don't look at the full fruits. He says, Ravina, you have to put it together. You have to almost like a chasur mechsa you have to add one more line over here. She ate the branches. Aval ochlo what? Smother pogim obayser, the budding fruits or unripe fruits. One understands that's all included. He goes on to say why the Gemara was more nichlet to say it this way. Once the fruit comes out, I look at it as a full fruit, and that's what you pay. Says more Yachim Shimon Yehuda and Rabbi Shua. Rabbi Shua, what did Rabbi Shua say? Look at the first line in the Amud. Rabbi Shua said, you look at Navim Thursday Butzer, We're talking about smada. We're talking about right in the beginning of the budding of the fruit. Rabbi Shimon is not arguing. So what does Rabbi Shimon coming to say differently than Rabbi Shua? Says the word it can be nayu kochash gufno v'loy misaymi. So the more the difference is kochash gufno. What is kochash gufno? How much the grape loses in value when you have a fruit growing on it. Meaning, you have vines. The vines, unused vines, are worth a certain amount of value. Once you have grapes, the grapes are worth a lot of money. But it comes with a cost. Vines that already grew grapes have less value than vines that never grew grapes. Because the grapes suck out the moist and nurture from the vines. So if I have, let's just make up numbers. Let's say I have vines and they're worth $100. Now you go and grow grapes, the grapes are worth $1,000. But once you took out the grapes, the vines are worth a little less, they're worth only $90. Do you take that into account, that $10 discount, the decrease in value of the vines? Or I ignore it, just look at the fruits? That's the machlekes. Kichash kufno, the chash, the decrease in value of the actual vines. Says the more of a I don't know who says what. I know Rabbi Shua and Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda argue, do you take that into account or not? We don't know who says what. We know that we know exactly who says what. Who's the time that takes into account the decrease in value of the vine? Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. It is Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda who's the one who says it. The Tanya, as we find in the Breit. So, Shimon ben Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon ben Nasio. Person who raped a girl, we know there is a certain amount of payments he has to pay. Instead of Shimon Yehuda, you don't have to pay for pain. Which pain referring to? The pain of Be'ilah, especially because it refers to pain of Be'ilah, especially the first time there's a Be'ilah. That would happen anyway. She would have some pain. She have tsar when she would have her first Be'ilah with her husband. So that you don't take into account. They told him, so it's very different when she does willingly, then the pain is much less than a woman who's raped, and then the pain is much more. So there is a value for the pain. You can't just say it's going to happen in the future. So as Toys points out, Rabbanan and Shimon they both agree about one thing. Whatever pain she will have in the future, you needed to remove it from a payment right now. You don't just say, I'm paying now whatever it is, and I'm not looking at future what's going to happen. I say, take it into account. Then in the future, if you wouldn't have done this nezek, there would be also decrease in value. Take that into the cheshbon as well. Put that as an expense to the bottom line. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda and Rabbanan both agree to do that. The question over here is the pain that a woman has when she's married the same pain that she has when she's raped? So that is a discussion in value. But they both agree that whatever will be in the future, I remove right now. So Yemir Zok the Gemara. If that's the case, so that's Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. We see he does take into account future decrease in value. So the Yemir also here by the grapes, he's taking into account the future decrease in value, and that's what he's arguing. Rabbi Shua, who says you just pay whatever it is, and I don't care that in the future will decrease in value as well. The following Tanoi, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, we just mentioned, they said the same thing. Shimon Yuda Adamar, that we say we take into account the future decrease in value. What's the other Tanoim? The Tanya. What are we talking about? Someone who went and hit a woman and caused her to have a miscarriage, which we spoke about a little bit earlier in the Masechta. So you have to pay for the blood to the husband. Says Yossi, yeah, but if you wouldn't have caused her to have a miscarriage, that she would have a normal birth, you would have to pay for a lady to give birth, right? You would have to have the midwife to come and help the woman to give birth. That costs money. He saved that money. Yeah, he's not happy to save that money, but he saved that money. So you have to decrease it from the money you're paying. That is a basic. Now, as they said, when a woman gets pregnant and she goes to full term, she has to feed her more food. That is a cost of money. You have to remove that for the payment. So it's one takes into account the midwife. Of course, you'll take into account the food. But when it says Mizayna, it says don't take into account the midwife. He tells him, my wife, she is smart, she's wise. Doesn't need a chai. This is mamish this week's parsha Shmois. We have that Yocheved and Miriam, when Paro comes and tells them, make sure to kill all the kids of the Jews, they say, well, the Jewish women are very pikchos, they're able to give birth on their own. They don't need us to give birth. So there's such a concept that we find in this week's parsha. And that's why the person can say, you have to pay me. You're tiny that I would have to pay for a midwife? Not sure. I don't think I would have to pay for a midwife. And therefore, in this case, you have to pay. And this goes into Inyonim and Achronim, that by Nezek, you don't say, I'm going to say, and that's why maybe you have to pay over here. Now, what do you see over here? They both take into account future expenses. So that's exactly what Shem ben Yehuda. Something where Papa Meaning they did like Rav Nachman told us, that you multiply the damage by 60 in order to figure out what is the payment. They value the tree, a palm tree, based on the land. And the Tosfos Parrot says that means based on 60. It's the same idea, just like we said before, that you do not its value of the tree itself, but the tree based on the land where it is. So in a Aramaic palm tree, meaning a normal palm tree, you do this idea of times 60, and that's your value. But Rish Galuso, we mentioned, in the end of the previous daf, that he went and said, give the actual value of the tree not based on 60. Now we do agree with Rish Galuso. We're talking about a Persian dekel, Persian palm tree, because it is very, very important. And now you can't say you just do it based on the full tree, based on the full field. That is as an actual value. It's very chashuv, and you consider it on its own. So it depends on which tree it is to figure out if you're valuing based on a bigger field or not. Says the Gemara, Eliezer Zehiro, that's his name. When down from Tesson base. Eliezer Zehiro is a mashma loshen of a novel. Always Zehiro means a novel. Someone who's small and was memayat himself. Gemara brings a story. Havesayim Mesane Uchme. He was wearing black shoes. Vekayim b'shuk in Nardo, and he's sitting in the market of Nardo. Ashkechu the Rish Galuso, the policeman of Rish Galuso, found him. Why are you wearing these shoes? I mean, first should point out that the Goyim used to wear black shoes. The Jews were careful not to wear black. So he says, why are you wearing black shoes? We're saying, I'm doing Avelus on Yerushalayim. And you're important enough to be Misabel in Yerushalayim. So Yehurav, they felt that's a gaiva. He's a bal gaiva. They put him into jail. No, I'm a kosher person. I'm a type of chacham. Says, how are we going to know? He says, oh, you ask me a shiloh, I'll ask you a shiloh. I'll show you that I'm a gavar rabba. Please ask you. Someone who ate damaged a tree, what does he pay? He pays the krefer. He pays the full tree. He says, 1 second, but they will become dates, right? You have to pay, you know, why are you paying right now, whatever it's worth? I want you, kufra means unripe dates. So you pay the way, what do you value? Looks like it's going to be fully ripe. Why don't you pay the future value? I say, oh, you know what, you're probably right. You have to pay full fruits. I love time shaka. He said, 1 second, he didn't eat dates. So why do you pay based on future value? It's okay, you know what I hear? Oh, I don't know the answer. Maybe you give us the answer. You do it based on 60. Who said like you? Go ask Shmuel. Shmuel's alive. He says, good, that's true. That's how long you do based on 60. They let him go. So just a few elements on this story. Number one is, Tais points out, is it true that you don't wear black shoes? He brings rise, you do wear black shoes. He says you do wear black shoes, you don't wear black laces. Talking about the laces over here. That was what they did. That's the Mirakta the Masan, that's Mashma. The Gemara speaks about it. The person has to sometimes kill himself for Mirakta the Masan. The story over here says that if they didn't know he's a Tamil Chacham or not. So he said, I'm a Tamil Chacham. Already in the Farshim or bothered by the Ben Yoyado, the Ben Yisosfer asks, we learned that a person should not save himself by saying, I'm a Tamil Chacham. How does he save himself by saying, I'm a Tamil Chacham? One ma'alach that Chaim say is, because he didn't say, I'm a Tamil Chacham to get covet. He said, Tamil Chacham because of covet in Yerushalayim. It's not for himself. Because he wants to do Avelos in Yerushalayim. But the main thing that comes out of here is you don't do Avelos in Yerushalayim unless a person is Adam Choshev. Why is that so? So Chassid Sofer has a richus in a few places. But one Nekuda he says, this is a beautiful idea in the Droshos. He says the Pshat is like this. There's two things that give us kapara in Yerushalayim. The actual Beis HaMikdash and Talmidei Chachamim. The Torah is in lieu of Beis HaMikdash. A person who's not Talmidei Chacham, who's so sad about Yerushalayim, so basically he says the Talmidei Chachamim are not for me. They're not good enough for me. That means he mizalz about Talmidei Chachamim. That's not right. A Talmidei Chacham, that he is himself a Talmidei Chacham, he can say, yeah, but I'm still misal by Yerushalayim. But someone who's not Talmidei Chacham, he needs to be at least comforted by the fact that he has Talmidei Chachamim. So that's why only Talmidei Chacham can cry Yerushalayim, not somebody else. That's what he brings. He brings more, and that's more the simple understanding that to be someone who's Abba Yerushalayim the whole time, you have to be in a very high madrega, and that's what they were checking on him over here, and he had to prove himself. More about this, Be'ez Hashem, the Shor Machshava that will be sent later today. It says the Gemara. If she ate full ripe fruits, you pay full ripe fruits. My time, what we learn in yesterday's daf, that you do the valuation based on the field. That's only something that still requires the field, meaning talking about fruits that require the field. Here you don't need the field, it's fully ripe. You pay based on its own value. Rav, in one place he did like Rameir, and another place he did like Reb Shimon. What are the places? Now Rav Kerameir, the Tanya Kosav Levisha, we're talking about an Isha who her husband sold the field which was collateral to her ksuva. He sold it. The husband sold it to his friend Reuven, and then he came to the wife and said, do you agree? She said, no, I'm not agreeing to the sale. But then he sold it to Shimon, and she didn't agree. It says she lost the ksuba because the fact that she said no to Reuven shows that she is comfortable to say no. And then she said yes to Shimon, that means she actually agreed to the sale. Maybe this is no, because she can still say, listen, he sent me one guy, I was like, I think it was tough on him. Second guy, I really felt uncomfortable. So he didn't like her man. We're just learning now. She eats, the animal eats full ripe fruits. You pay full ripe fruits. Depends on what you're eating. He paskin that way. That's what Rav did. So we conclude the sugya by saying that Rav paskin like this. Says the Mishnah. A person puts a pile of hay in the field of his friend without his permission. The animal of the balasod, they ate it. But the owner of the son doesn't have to pay for it. He had no rishus, he had no permission. But if the animal got hurt, Balagodish has to pay. Why does the Balagodish have to pay? Why are you putting the Godish here and you're hurting my animal? You don't say here, which is something to think about. We put in Bishus, Balasod needs to pay for the Godish. Says the Gemara, what we learned earlier, that is a machlekes. If a person says, I'm allowing you to come in, does that mean I'm also taking responsibility to guard it or not? Rabbi said, I'm not taking responsibility unless I said clearly, I'm going to guard it. Here he just said to come in. Why are you saying he has to guard it? This mission is not like Rabbi. We're talking about a place that people put piles of hay, and there's a guard that guards them. That's what they do. That's the place. That's like the storage area. That's the case. Here, when a person says, come in, the Shomer means to say, I'm going to guard it. Because that's the common thing. If they're going into a storage place in our area that has security, say, come in, come in, I'll guard it. So here, even Rabbi agrees, he has to pay for the achila of the Gadish, and that's the Chiddush over here. That's where the Gemara brings this Mishnah. As Zoy Toisa says, that's where we bring this Mishnah. We will stop over here. As mentioned, we're going to learn the next half today after Menachem Harav. Kol Tov.